Vítejte u kanálu Seroš. Dnes si posvítíme na seriál From. Představte si, že jedete na rodinný výlet. Odbočíte z hlavní silnice a najednou se ocitnete v městečku, ze kterého není úniku. Každý pokus o odjezd vás vrátí zpět na stejné místo.
Ne, tohle není možné. Teď jsme v kruhu přece nejeli. Vyjel s tímhle směrem, co zase děláme tady?
Ne, co to je?
A když padne noc, začnou se z lesů vynořovat děsivé bytosti, které vypadají jako lidé, ale jejich úsměvy skrývají smrtící úmysly. Tak začíná From, americký hororový seriál, který se vysílá od roku 2022. Seriál From se odehrává v tajemném městečku uprostřed Ameriky, kde se ocitají lidé, kteří sem zabloudili. Jakmile vstoupí, nemohou odejít. Město je obklopeno lesy, ze kterých po setmění vycházejí monstra, jež se snaží nalákat obyvatelé ven a zabít je.
Jsou vážně nádherný.
Jsem rád, že se ti líbí.
Kdy už mě pustíš dovnitř?
Jeden z hlavních protagonistů je Boyd Stevens, bývalý voják, který se snaží udržet pořádek a bezpečí v této nehostinné realitě. Dalšími klíčovými postavami jsou Tabitha a Jim Matthewsovi, kteří se sem dostanou se svými dětmi a snaží se pochopit, co se děje.
Ty brečíš, mami?
Ne, šmudlo, jen mě bolí hlava.
Pojď sem. Pojď ke mně.
Chybí mi Julie.
A co si zajít do toho bystra? Šerif říkal, že tam každý ráno dělají snídaně. Co ty na to? Máš hlad?
Harold Perrineau v roli Boyda Stevense podává přesvědčivý výkon jako vůdce komunity, který čelí nejen vnějším hrozbám, ale i vnitřním konfliktům.
Pojď už dovnitř, broučku.
Můžu prosím ještě 5 minut?
Megan, poslechni.
Dobře, šerife.
Elizabeth Saunders jako Donna Raines, vůdkyně komunity zvané Colony House, přináší do seriálu silnou ženskou postavu, která se nebojí čelit nebezpečí. Herecké výkony jsou obecně chváleny za svou autenticitu a hloubku. From exceluje v budování napětí a strachu. Monstra, které se objevují po setmění, jsou děsivá nejen svým vzhledem, ale i tím, jak manipulují s obětmi. Seriál využívá psychologický horor a neustálé napětí, které udržuje diváka v nejistotě. Přirovnání k seriálu jako Lost nebo Walking Dead není náhodné. From kombinuje prvky obou a vytváří tak jedinečný zážitek. Seriál se zabývá tématy, jako je izolace, přežití a lidská psychika v extrémních podmínkách. Město může být vnímáno jako metafora propasti, do kterých se lidé dostávají ve svých životech. Otázky o tom, proč jsou lidé v tomto městě a co je skutečnou příčinou jejich uvěznění, zůstávají nezodpovězeny, což přidává na tajemnosti a nutí diváka k zamyšlení. Recenze a kritika. From získal pozitivní ohlasy od kritiků i diváků. První sezóna má hodnocení 96% od kritiků a 79% od diváků. Seriál byl nominovaný na několik cen, včetně Saturn Awards a NAACP. Nicméně, někteří diváci kritizují pomalejší tempo a neustálé přidávání nových záhad bez jasného vysvětlení. From je seriál, který si získá fanoušky hororu a mysteriózních příběhů svou atmosférou, komplexními postavami a neustálým napětím. Pokud hledáte seriál, který vás udrží v nejistotě a donutí vás přemýšlet o tom, From je tou správnou volbou.
Everybody give it up for the crew from From. That's how we do it at CBR. Yeah, they're not going to do that in Screen Rant, you guys. They might have a fancy couch and everything, but they're not going to cheer for you guys. This is like one of those shows that, like, what I've learned digging into it, watching it being introduced to it and then just reading about it is like, this is one of those shows that everybody who, not like it has like a niche audience, but everybody who watches it is like, why isn't everybody watching this? This thing like deserves the biggest audience possible. And then you start watching, you're like, oh yeah, this is really good. I'm gonna get right into, I think, the most pressing question I have, which is, I'll start with the cast. Like, there's so many mysteries that this story presents that are both big and small, like really small and really big. How cued in to all of these mysteries are you guys? And like, are you just learning things on sort of a need-to-know basis, or do you have a bigger picture knowledge?
I think the best person to answer that question is Catalina. How clued in are we, Kata?
Zero.
Zero.
Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. This guy is tight-lipped.
Yeah.
And then you go to him and you're like, I have a question about this. And he's like, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that. Oh, okay. That's his answer for everything. So we learn what's happening to the characters while we read the scripts. So it's terrifying.
I used to ask questions as well and realize that there's nothing that's going to be given whatsoever. And people are always asking, like, you know, like, what about the mystery and what do you expect to happen and hope to happen, which are all nice things to think about and want to know and feel like you're clued in on. But in this show, I quickly came to the realization that it's better just to be like, what comes next?
It adds to your
What
performance.
comes next?
Yeah,
That's it. Just
absolutely.
be right there in the moment. Totally
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
There it is. That's the next thing. Oh, that's the next thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like real life. I have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to get answers, and you know, it's just
Yeah, and right in the middle of thinking you're figuring it out, something sideswipes you.
Like, we want to know what you're going to ask next.
And
We're already afraid.
What's going on?
Some hard-hitting stuff, I'm going to tell you that.
for the record, it's not a role we enjoy. Everybody says it's like, oh, you must love having all the answers. It's like, no, I want to talk about it with everybody. I can't wait until the rest of the cast and the audience knows what's happening. Because
Well, I mean, Jeff and John, like this similar question, but sort of like on a more macro level, like, how do you decide how much to keep close to the vest? And when you're sort of mapping out a series like this, how strategic are you with like, oh, we're going to feed the audience a breadcrumb here or a breadcrumb there, but this isn't coming to like season 5, or like how? I mean, you guys, do you have walls of like?
walls and walls.
Walls, and some of them imagined and some of them real.
I'm having a deja vu right now. I think we've had this conversation.
Many times. The analogy that I always use is that the way to plan a really successful road trip is to know exactly where you're starting, know exactly where you're ending. You'll have, the 7 interstates you're going to take to get there, and you know where all the states are on the map. And that knowledge allows you to go off-road and explore and be surprised, because we often say that the day that we stop being surprised by the show, then the show will start to feel stale. So it's very important. We have a plan. There has been a plan since the beginning, but to allow that to evolve and to allow that to be an organic process. And when it comes to the actors, it was very important to tell Harold and Courtine, who plays Ellis, on day 1, look, Boyd shot his wife, because that's something that the characters are already living with, but the audience won't find out until episode 8. And so we very much delineate between look, this is what you're already carrying that we're going to reveal, and then the stuff that the characters aren't living with, they won't live with until it's time.
Yeah, and then importantly, and we said this from the beginning, and we said this when we were selling the show, this show is not about the mystery. This show is about the characters living in a set of circumstances, the answers that the audience, we want to share or know, will come out along the way. It's not going to be a big payoff at the ending. I think the most interesting thing about this show is the answers to the mysteries are just going to fuel more journey and more complications for the characters. If this were only about what are the answers, either the audience is like, oh, that was really cool, moving on to the next, or else they're disappointed because the mystery didn't live up to the expectation. So really, if you care about their plights, the mysteries just service that along the way.
And to answer your original question, we are constantly, it's a very fluid process, in terms of when we're going to reveal what. And for example, what we ended last season with, the cliffhanger with Tabitha, in the original plan for the show, that was going to come much later. You know, and we're like, oh, you know what? That'd be a lot of fun to slide up to here. Because as Jeff said, it's like, we often talk about the show, it's a character drama masquerading as a horror series.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just keeping that trail of breadcrumbs alive and rewarding, because it's threading the needle of like giving enough answers that the audience is satisfied and that the show is compelling, but not giving so many that we're getting ahead of ourselves. So it's a very organic process and a very fluid process.
Yeah, it's about these characters, but it's also about so much more, right? Like when I first started watching it, you know, you always you look for sort of like, what is the show saying? You know, and what is it really about? And like, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but like when I was watching, I was like, oh, this is just a metaphor for, not just, but this is a metaphor for people born in a small town who can't leave. Like they're just trapped in a, you know, that's stuck in the past, you know. But then I'm like, then as it moves along, you're like, no, this is about so much more. Yeah. What are the themes that you guys have sort of discovered that you didn't know right away going into this show? That you're like, oh no, we're actually saying we're starting to say this. We're starting to say this. What are the themes that you guys have latched onto in this series?
That's interesting. I remember looking at it just last year and thinking, oh, this is kind of like a pandemic allegory, right? Yeah. It's like all these things coming at you, the rules keep changing, you don't know what's real, what isn't real, there's a threat, it's psychological, but it's also physical, you know?
And we were shooting in 2021.
Yeah, we were shooting during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It took on a whole new meaning all of a sudden.
We didn't get into Nova Scotia to shoot to begin with, so we had the opposite problem. Yeah. We couldn't get in, and then once we were in, we couldn't get out of Nova Scotia.
Basically, we were stuck in
Nova Scotia.
Wow.
Yeah.
But thank goodness we're all essential workers.
Yes, we're essential workers.
Yeah. And then you meet people from Nova Scotia, and they're like, "No, I would love to live somewhere else."
Nova Scotia is fabulous, though.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. No.
Yeah. But the fact that you couldn't leave was
a little daunting.
Yes.
But Ian said it earlier today. There's a fissure in Jim and Tabitha's relationship, and the question is, how do you go on when there's this broken thing at the center of your life? For these characters, one of the things I think that's the most attractive to me about the show is really the question of like, how do you choose to live every day given your set of circumstances, whatever they may be? And the show explores that in many different ways.
And one of the things he was like when he said originally, we thought of it more like this pandemic thing. One of the things that kicks in for me a lot right now is like commitment to family. Like there's so many themes about commitment to family, like staying in the fight because you have no other choice but to fight, right? But staying in why you're staying in, and it really has started playing out like a big family drama for me personally.
Oh, yeah,
I just keep watching like how the relationships in the family keep changing, how I actually have a son, but another guy who's like my son, and a daughter who's over there, and you know what I mean, and a de facto kind of wife, but except I killed my other one. Anyway, be careful. You're not my wife, though. You don't have to worry about it.
No, I don't worry about you at all. I know. He's gone on about this for 3 seasons now. I get it. You have a crush on me.
Now it's revealed.
It's gonna be okay, Brittany. It's gonna be okay. I'm still married to Cliff.
You wouldn't have a crush on Donna. Come on. That's a great point. It ties into the end of season 2, like when you're talking about all being about family and the sort of conflicts that these characters are, specific conflicts that presents them. It's like she wakes up in that hospital and like wants to get back into that trap because she misses her family. Right. Like, who would want to go back there?
Right. And the why is she in the hospital is because of her family. Yeah. Like why she ended up in the hospital is because she wanted to save Julie.
Yeah. Děkuji, že jste dokoukali tohle video až do konce. Kdyby vás zajímal rozbor na nějaký další seriál, napište nám to do komentářů, dejte like, odběr a těšíme se na vás příště.